The story opens with a hunter and his young daughter checking their traps deep in the forest. They use special nets to catch animals, collecting both new prey and creatures already stuck in older traps, while their loyal dog follows close behind. The man contacts his wife Anne over the radio and tells her to head into town for supplies. This small family lives far from civilization and survives entirely by selling animal pelts. They eat the meat and sell the fur, and because they have no other skills, hunting is their only income. The father is now teaching the trade to his daughter, though she is still clumsy and inexperienced. While checking a trap, they discover one of the animals is missing. The girl immediately says it must be him again, referring to a wolf that has been stealing from them for some time. Meanwhile, Anne arrives in town to sell the day's collection of pelts. Prices have dropped so low that she earns almost nothing, barely enough to survive. The shopkeeper tells her that regular pelts are always cheap. If she wants real money, she needs wolfskin. Hearing this only deepens her worry. She gazes at a poster advertising houses for rent and job opportunities, revealing how badly she longs for a stable life away from the forest. Anne wants a proper home, a real job and a school for her daughter, but with no savings she has no choice except to return. At home, her husband teaches their daughter how to skin an animal while Anne cooks a meager meal. The atmosphere is tense, they barely have enough food. When the girl mentions the wolf stealing from their traps again, Anne becomes furious, accusing her husband of hiding the truth. She tells him that unless he deals with the wolf, the family will starve. After sending their daughter inside, the argument intensifies. The husband believes the wolf is drawn to their daughter's scent, but Anne insists it keeps returning because they provide easy prey. Anne wants to call the authorities, but he refuses, promising he will catch the wolf himself the next day. Yet the wolf is not her only concern. She shows him the poster from town, pleading that they cannot live like this forever. She wants a real job and a real life for their daughter. Her husband rejects the idea entirely. This forest is their home and it always will be. The next morning, he goes out to hunt the wolf, reluctantly taking the daughter with him after she begs to join. Anne strongly opposes it, but he promises to send the girl back once he reaches the hunting grounds. After tracking prints through the snow, he spots fresh wolf tracks and realizes the animal is close. He explains the danger to his daughter and orders her to return home, promising to be back before nightfall. On her way back, the daughter remembers her father's warning not to panic, but the forest fills with strange, unsettling noises that make her tremble. At the same time, Anne, carrying water from the river, senses someone watching her and hurries home in fear. She reaches the cabin safely, but her daughter doesn't. Anne waits anxiously while, deeper in the woods, the wolf appears before her husband. He fires his rifle, but the look in the wolf's eyes suggests it isn't dead. Hearing the gunshot, the daughter pushes herself toward the sound. When the husband inspects the scene, he finds the wolf has vanished. But something else freezes him in place, the severed arm of a young woman, gnawed by some creature. Following the trail, he discovers a horrific sight, several dismembered female bodies arranged in a grotesque circle. No animal could have done this. He realizes that beyond the wolf, a human killer is hiding in the forest, someone capable of brutal slaughter with a monstrous weapon. Terror overwhelms him. His wife and daughter are still home alone, and while a wolf is dangerous, a murderer is far worse. He returns silently, unable to eat or sleep, telling them nothing so they won't panic. All he can think about is protecting his family. The next morning, Anne wakes to find him gone. He had told her he might stay in the woods overnight searching for the wolf, but in truth he has gone back to follow the killer's tracks. Meanwhile, Anne and her daughter go to the river. The girl notices their dog is missing and goes looking for it. Just as the wolf appears, creeping toward them, acting on instinct, Anne screams, startling the wolf and forcing it to flee. They sprint home in terror. But the dog is still out there. Anne grabs a rifle and returns to search, only to find the animal dead, killed by the wolf. Heartbroken, she lies to her daughter, saying they will search again when her father returns. She cannot bear to tell the girl the truth. Another day passes with no sign of her husband. Checking the traps again, Anne discovers the prey has been taken once more, and finds a ring on the forest floor, likely belonging to one of the murdered women. Horrified, she rushes to the nearest police station to report everything, insisting the wolf is responsible and begging for help. At that moment, the sheriff has just recovered the body of a young boy and is on his way back. He notices an abandoned car on the roadside but ignores it. When Anne tells her story, the sheriff refuses to help. Their cabin is outside his jurisdiction, he says, and they cannot waste resources hunting a wolf. You live in the woods, that's your problem. With no support, Anne returns home with a small amount of food. She buries the dog, kills a fawn for meat, knowing it's illegal but having no other choice. and prepares dinner with her daughter. Just as they begin eating, the radio crackles with strange static. Anne calls out, but the voice on the other end is nothing but distortion. That night, as Anne and her daughter sleep, a piercing scream echoes through the forest and jolts them awake. Rushing outside, they discover it isn't Anne's husband but an injured stranger calling weakly for help. Anne hurriedly sends her daughter back to the cabin, then returns to drag the man onto a wooden board and pull him to safety, knowing the wolf could still be nearby. When she checks him, she finds a radio on his belt and a severe wound on his leg. The night passes in tense silence. At dawn, Anne's daughter wakes up trembling from fear. Together, they tend to the stranger. Following his request, Anne gives him water and stitches the wound. The girl quietly warns her mother not to trust outsiders, but Anne replies, "Look at him. No one survives injuries like that alone. If your father were here, he'd help." Elsewhere, the sheriff drives back toward the station. He notices the same abandoned car he saw 2 days earlier. Sensing trouble, he stops, inspects the area, records the license plate, then continues. Back at the cabin, the stranger finally wakes and murmurs, "My name is Lou." Anne asks why he is in such a remote forest. Lou explains that he is a nature photographer, that his vehicle broke down, and while hiking deeper into the woods he was attacked, likely by a wolf, though he never got a clear look. His condition is worsening, and he needs a hospital, but with the wolf possibly close, traveling is dangerous. Even so, Anne tries to help him to the car, but the pain forces them to turn back. Anne and her daughter prepare defenses around the cabin, laying poisoned meat, lighting protective fires, hoping to keep the wolf from approaching. Meanwhile, the sheriff can't shake his unease. Too many women have gone missing in the area and something about that car feels wrong. Though his shift is nearly over, he decides to return to investigate. It is the worst decision he will ever make. Following tracks into the forest, he suddenly steps into a trap. Struggling to free himself, he only gets more entangled as a second clamp snaps onto his arm. He realizes the trap wasn't set for animals. It was part of Anne's plan to catch the killer. But the one ensnared now is the sheriff himself. Anne appears gun in hand, staring at him in shock, saying nothing. Her husband still has not returned. At the station, a female officer arrives for her morning shift and receives a voicemail from the sheriff's wife. He never came home. The officer tries calling him over the radio but receives no response. Alarmed, she heads into the forest to search. Meanwhile, Anne continues desperately hunting for her husband. She carries a map to retrace every trap location. Along the way, she finds a rabbit caught in one of them. Though horrified, she forces herself to kill it. Survival demands it and she has no other choice. As Anne continues through the woods, her radio crackles faintly. She follows the sound and freezes. Her husband lies dead on the forest floor, his body mauled and soaked in blood. She collapses beside him sobbing. In that moment everything becomes clear. He wasn't killed by the wolf, he was killed by Lou. Lou is the serial murderer hiding in the forest, and her husband died after discovering the truth. Lou's injuries came from that confrontation, and Anne, without knowing it, had rescued the man who murdered her husband. The realization hits her like ice. Lou is a killer and she left her daughter alone with him. Panicked, Anne sprints back toward the cabin. At the same time, the female officer who went searching for the sheriff arrives in the forest and senses someone watching her. She fires 2 warning shots and moments later finds the sheriff trapped. Seeing him barely alive, she immediately calls for backup. Anne reaches the cabin and steps inside cautiously. Her daughter is still asleep, but Lou is gone. He suddenly bursts from behind a door and attacks her. They struggle violently, and a gunshot explodes from Anne's weapon. Hearing it, her daughter wakes and runs toward the chaos, but Anne is already unconscious on the floor. Police arrive in the forest, but before they can free the sheriff, he dies. Tracking fresh footprints, they push deeper into the woods. Meanwhile, Anne regains consciousness as Lou looms over her. He demands the truck keys. She stares at him and asks only one question: "Where is my daughter?" Lou refuses to answer. His voice turns cold as he says, "None of this would have happened if your husband kept his mouth shut. He got in my way, so I killed him, and now I'm going to kill you too." He burns his belongings, steps toward Anne, and begins to beat her. But she reacts quickly, snapping a metal trap around his face. With Lou momentarily stunned, she frees herself and strikes him with a blunt object, knocking him unconscious. Anne rushes into the next room and breaks down in horror. Her daughter's body lies motionless on the floor. The film spares the details, but the truth is unmistakable. Lou murdered her child. Crushed by grief, Anne makes a vow. She ties Lou upside down from the ceiling, puts headphones over his ears and begins skinning him like an animal. To her, he isn't human anymore. The scene is harrowing. Anne methodically strips the skin from his entire body, ending with his face, leaving him a grotesque, blood-soaked shell of a man. By the time the police follow the trail to the cabin, Anne has finished. She steps outside and throws Lou's skin onto the ground before them. The officers recoil in horror. Inside, Lou is still alive, barely breathing, his flayed body nearly unrecognizable. Anne sits down, puts the headphones back on and listens to the same song she once played for her husband and daughter. Memories flood in. Quietly, she removes the earbuds, bows her head, and the story ends in the heavy silence of a mother who has lost everything.